Welcome everyone. This is Elisa with XY Zen Wellness, and we're going to get ready to do a really fun and flowing practice today. But as always, please remember to listen to your body. So as we move through options, if you want to take a gentler version, please feel free, or if you want to take a more active version, you can do that as well. One thing you might want to have nearby, in addition to blocks, because I always recommend that you have blocks or maybe a book or a cushion, something that can sometimes help give you a little more space from the ground. But you may want a strap or a towel, maybe a long t-shirt. You don't need it, but it's just nice to have if you would like to have it. And we will get started you can be at the front of your mat. I'll be in the middle of mine facing you. And we'll start in mountain pose. So taking a few moments to find your stance as we, maybe shift from foot to foot and, just start to feel a sense of getting balance between both feet. We'll make sure all 10 toes are facing the front, and maybe even spreading our toes, lifting them off the ground, giving them a little wiggle. And then once we feel nice and settled between both feet, we'll soften our knees, rolling the shoulders back and down, letting the palms face forward. And you can either close your eyes if that feels accessible today, or maybe letting your gaze come down towards the floor if you'd rather not close the eyes completely. And as we feel this strength here in this pose in mountain, we can allow our eyes to begin to really soften. So whether they're closed or slightly open, just letting the eyes get heavy in their sockets as we start to notice our breath. And with that first awareness of the breath, not needing to change it or shape it in any way, just having that awareness of what it feels like. Where is the breath going in this moment? With our eyes softly closed or down towards the ground, you might notice that the weight of the body starts to shift a little bit. So even though we started with a sense of trying to be centered between both feet, we can maybe notice if we're leaning off to one side, or maybe if we're leaning more forward or more back. And as best as we can, finding that place where we're centered between both sides and then front to back, keeping the knees soft. And as we root down through the feet, maybe imagining some roots coming out of the bottoms of the feet, traveling down into the center of the earth and off into every direction. And through those roots, we'll draw some nourishment, draw some energy up into the body, and maybe even with that sense of energy, maybe noticing ourselves growing just a little bit taller as we lift and engage through the pelvic floor, and using that energy to zip up the front of the body, growing just a little bit taller. And one thing to check in with is the chin. So sometimes we might notice the chin and the neck jutting forward, but imagining that maybe we have a softball or an orange underneath the chin, in between the chin and the chest. And we want to keep that orange there, keep certain that we don't overextend or arch the neck, trying to shrug the shoulders up towards the ears. And then coming back to that breath, noticing if it's changed in any way as we're connecting to our power and our strength in this pose. So perhaps inhaling now for a count of 4. And then exhaling for a count of 4. Inhaling. And then exhaling. So as we breathe in and breathe out, letting both of those be your count of 4. And then maybe if it feels interesting to you, allowing a brief little pause between the in-breath and the out-breath. Noticing the pause between the breaths. So inhaling, creating space in the body and in the mind. And then exhaling, letting go of all those things that no longer serve us. Just riding the waves of the breath. If you notice your mind start to drift and wander, just inviting the mind back to the presence of the breath. Even if we have to do that over and over again, not attaching any type of judgment or story to why those thoughts are coming up, just letting them go, knowing that it's all just a part of being human, being alive. And setting your intention for your practice today, whether it be to cultivate a sense of strength in the body or the mind, maybe a sense of relaxation, and you might say to yourself, I am relaxed and at ease. Or maybe even using a noun or a verb or an adjective to describe yourself. So you might say, I am enough. Or maybe I am love. And then as you're ready, we'll just bow our chin towards our chest. And if eyes are closed, we'll allow them to slowly flutter open. Coming back into the room and then lifting chin parallel to the floor. We're going to start to bring some movement into the body and match that with breath. So inhaling, we'll sweep the arms out. And then exhaling, hands can come to heart center. Inhaling up. And then exhaling, hands down. So hands can either come down through the middle or they can go back out to the side. Maybe experimenting with those two options. Using that full in-breath to lengthen and the out-breath to bring the arms back to center. So we're starting to connect mind, body, and breath. So pretty much like a moving meditation right here. And from here, we're going to get a little bit more creative. So I'm going to give you some options and you can pick and choose, maybe finding something else that works for you. So you can stay right here with the sweeping breath if you're enjoying this. Or we could turn this into a lateral flexion, inhaling, sweeping the right arm up, the left arm down, and then exhaling, sweeping that arm down, inhaling the other side up. So now we're getting long through the side body, moving the spine, not just up, but a little bit to the side, getting that little bit of an arcing action, a little bit of a side bend getting through the side body. So one side lengthens and the other side contracts. Again, moving with your breath. So again, maybe choosing to stay there, or if you'd like, we could start to move through a twist. So this time, maybe inhaling, sweeping the arms up, and then as we exhale, twisting the body over to the right side. Inhaling forward, and then exhaling to the left side. So this might feel really good through the torso. Nice twist for flexibility of the spine. And then again, as I was saying, we want to get a little creative here. So we could stay in any one of these options, or maybe turn this more into a little bit of free movement. So we might start to just twist the arms, maybe even letting the hands or the fists come to the glutes, maybe the lower back. And we could turn our head to look behind us. Feet might be a little bit wider now. in that mountain pose. So if you want to move your feet around, and you might even lift a foot as you're turning here. Then you might just start to move however feels good to you. So it could be that little bit of a side bend, or maybe bringing the arms overhead and taking some circles with the torso. And we can bend our knees as much as we'd like here. So noticing what part of your body might feel a little tight and maybe need some movement or some opening. We'll do just a couple more rounds of whatever's feeling good as we're just finding this little bit of free movement here. Maybe even some hip circles. Now we're going to come into a movement that's called Flight of the Bird. So I'll turn to the side to show you, and then I'll turn to face you as well. So starting with our feet maybe more in that hip width distance, that mountain pose, we're going to step back with our right foot, and we're going to open the arms wide, so kind of like a lunge pose. So we'll step and open, and then forward, and then step back and open. So turning to face you. So imagining that you're a beautiful bird flying through the sky. And when we do this movement here, you can take up as much space as you'd like, and maybe even move around on your mat so you can turn to face the other side. And just maybe exploring the space that you can take up. Stepping back nice and safely, keeping the knee and the toes tracking in the same direction, and opening your wings and closing them. You might even start to turn this into more of a hug when you come in. Inhaling, opening, exhaling that little bit of a hug, maybe a squat there. Moving with your breath. So we're getting some nice warmth for the body, and we're getting into all types of movements. So if you've been sitting all morning, this might feel really good to get the body moving, getting the blood moving, waking everything up. So just one or two more like this. And then coming up, giving ourselves a big inhale, bringing hands to heart center. We're going to move through chair flow now. Excuse me. So feet are underneath our hips, so right in line. And we'll take a breath in, sweeping arms to the sky. Exhaling, sitting hips back and down into chair. Arms can be in front of the body, or maybe in prayer, or even to the thighs. Remembering, arms are optional. So whatever feels good to you with the arms, maybe getting a little expressive or experimenting, seeing what feels good to you. We'll do just a couple more rounds of chair. Letting the weight of the body come towards the heels, lifting through the heart. So if you notice that you're looking down towards the floor, maybe lifting up a little bit higher. And then coming back into mountain pose. So I'm going to turn to the side of my mat so you can see me a little better. And we'll all come to the front of our mats. Feet are about hip bone distance apart. We're going to flow through swan dive. Inhaling, sweeping arms up. Big exhale as we hinge at the hips, keeping the knees bent into forward fold. Rooting down through the feet, keeping knees bent. We'll inhale up. And exhaling, forward fold. So big knee bend in both directions to protect the lower back and the hamstrings. And we'll draw in through that navel to protect the lower back. So when we come into that forward fold, engaging the belly button, using strength of the core to help us lift back up. Bring down with the feet to rise tall. And then this time as we exhale, coming into that forward fold, we'll plant our hands and step our feet back into a downward facing dog. So hands are about shoulder width apart, feet are hip distance. We can start by walking our dog, pedaling out the feet, lifting one heel and then the other. Again, keeping that integrity in the core, drawing the navel in and up. You can add in any other movement that might feel good right here. So maybe swiveling on the feet to get into the side body a little more, or you can find a three-legged dog. And then coming into stillness in our downward facing dog, pressing the heart back towards the thighs. Our gaze is at the feet. Exhaling, bringing knees to the floor. We'll uncurl the toes and shift our hips back into child's pose. Knees can be close together or further apart. And then from here, we're going to start to move through our half series vinyasa. So inhaling forward, stacking shoulders over the wrists, or we could stay in the tabletop. And then exhaling back into child's pose. Inhaling to shift forward, pressing that core strongly away from us, and then exhaling back. So this is our basic flow. And if you've been with me before, you know that the next option would be to add in a push-up. Exhaling either all the way down or maybe pausing here in that crocodile push-up, and then lifting up with strength as we shift the hips back into child's pose. Exhaling, and then lifting. So you might add that push-up in one round and leave it out the next. Only adding it if you can lower with the control and strength of the upper body, moving as one unit. And we'll do just one more time like this. Exhaling back into child's pose. So from here, we'll have an option to add on. We can lift our hips back into a downward facing dog. So tucking those toes under, lifting the hips, drawing in through that navel. This time we're just going to inhale forward to plank on toes. You might still be on knees, and that's fine. So finding whichever feels good to you. And if you're on toes, we're going to use the strength of the core to help us lift back into downward facing dog. So using the belly to inhale us forward and exhaling back. Inhaling forward and exhaling back to downward dog. So maybe just one more time like that. Inhaling forward. Exhaling, downward facing dog. From here, lowering the knees down to the floor, uncurling the toes, shifting hips all the way back into that child's pose. From here, we're going to walk both hands off the left side of the mat, pulling the right fingertips forward. Feeling a nice stretch through the right side body into the shoulder and through the ribs, all the way down to that hip. Inhaling across the mat, taking our hands over to the right side now, crawling those left fingertips away from the heel. Coming back to center. We'll lift up into a table pose. So hands are directly underneath shoulders. We can either spread the fingertips wide or make fists for wrists. And the knees are under the hips. We're going to start to move through cat and cow. So first exhaling all the air out of the belly as we round the spine up towards the ceiling. Reversing that, we'll inhale, lifting the tailbone, dropping the belly, and looking forward. Exhaling, rounding, creating space, pushing the floor away from us, and then inhaling to look forward. So a nice articulation through the spine, imagining that our spine is like a strand of pearls. We want to move one pearl at a time, starting down at the base of the spine, moving from one pearl, one vertebrae, to another, all the way to the crown of the head. One more time like this. then coming into our neutral spine, we can wag our tail like a happy dog. So that might be a little tail wag with the hips going side to side. We can make that a little bit bigger. So slowing that down and bringing our hips back to stillness, we'll inhale at center, looking forward, and then as we exhale, looking over the left shoulder towards the left heel, maybe crossing the right leg behind us. Inhaling through center, and then exhaling, looking over the right shoulder, and again, option to cross that left foot. So again, maybe feeling one side of the body getting a little longer, one side getting a little shorter. Might notice this into maybe the lower back or the hips. And either returning to cat and cow or that smaller tail wag or staying here, or you can get a little creative with your movements. You might do some hip circles or jump rope through the torso. Honoring whatever your body needs. And as we move through the practice, always saying to yourself, what does my body need right now? And honoring that. So getting away from the shoulds or the have-tos, or thinking that we need our bodies to look any particular way in any pose. So it's always about making the poses and the practice fit our bodies instead of the other way around. So we'll slow this down and we're going to lift into another downward facing dog. So we'll walk the hands forward. And actually I'm going to show you an option here too. So if your wrists are getting tired and you want to come down onto the forearms, we can come into dolphin pose, bringing forearms down to the floor and interlacing the fingers. Now this is a strengthener for shoulders, so just finding which feels better, and we'll go through both. Interlacing fingers, and now tucking the toes under to lift into dolphin pose. So you could be here, or if you'd like, bringing the hands down again, once again, shoulder width, sending our gaze back towards the feet, drawing that navel in, engaging through that pelvic floor, creating what we call mula bandha or root lock as we lift through the pelvic floor, lifting those hips. We'll inhale, looking forward. And then as we exhale, taking a walk to the top of our mats, coming into a forward fold, shaking out the head and neck, releasing any tension in the upper back and shoulders. So we'll soften our knees here. Nice deep knee bend as we inhale, circle sweeping up. Exhaling, hands come to heart center. Relaxing shoulders down away from the ears, and we'll set our gaze over the fingertips. Maybe even sighing out a breath through the mouth. Inhaling, arms come overhead, and then as we exhale, taking that swan dive, deep forward fold with big bend in the knees. We'll inhale halfway, coming into flat back or monkey pose. Hands could be on our shins, or we could use our blocks. So the goal here isn't to get all the way down to the floor. The goal here is length through the spine. So imagining we can create just a little more space between each of the vertebrae. And then we'll exhale, hands to the floor, rounding the back, coming into forward fold. On our next in-breath, we'll step the right foot back, lowering the knee down to the ground, uncurling the toes. Left knee is over the ankle. So if you notice that the knee is in front of the ankle, you can give that foot a little bit of help forward. And keeping hands grounded, or we can walk those hands up that front thigh, lifting through the chest and really lifting through the belly. So rather than collapsing into that front leg. Option for arms. Remember, arms are always optional. Breathing into both sides of the pelvis. And as we exhale, hands come to the floor. We'll step the left foot back, shifting our hips into child's pose. Any variation of a vinyasa, so either of the ones we did earlier or another one that you might have in your practice. So maybe inhaling forward, exhaling to push up, inhaling up, and exhaling back. So maybe one more round of a vinyasa. And then exhaling, finding our way back to child's pose. On the next in-breath, stepping that right foot forward. So always being very mindful of that alignment with the knee and the ankle. We can lift into that more upright version of our low lunge. And maybe taking cactus arms or goalpost arms right here to expand the space at the chest and the front of the shoulders and really strengthen the upper back as well. Exhaling, hands come to the floor. We'll tuck the rear toes under, lifting the back knee, and then stepping to the top of the mat, forward fold. Inhaling halfway, exhaling to round. Rooting down through those feet, we'll inhale, sweeping up, exhaling, sitting into chair pose. Inhaling to lift, exhaling, hinging out the hips, forward fold. Inhaling to lift into that halfway lift, flat back, keeping shoulders away from the ears, belly strong in. Exhaling, hands come to the floor, and this time we'll step the left foot back, lowering the knee down to the ground, uncurling those toes. And then as we lift, remembering hands could be at prayer, or this time we have an option for a twist. So from here, we'll inhale, lengthening, getting just a little bit taller, and as we exhale, twisting away. So hands could stay at heart center, or we could bring hands to the legs. Turning the head in either direction. We'll breathe, noticing if the breath is getting a little tricky here. So if we're getting labored with the breath or holding the breath, we can back out of our twist. And then we'll inhale back to center. Exhaling, hands come to the floor. We'll step the right foot back, coming back either into child's pose, downward facing dog, or we can move through a vinyasa. So in vinyasa, that might feel good. Remembering stillness is always an option as well. And then finding our way back into child's pose or downward facing dog. On the next breath, we'll step the left foot to the top of the mat. We'll lower that knee down. So finding that low lunge once again. Inhaling, hands can come to prayer, and we can take that twist to the other side. So every time we twist, we always want to start with an in-breath to lengthen the spine, create space, and then exhaling as we twist. So hands can come to the thighs, or they can stay in that prayer position. Hugging inner thighs together to create some stability here. We might actually find a little bit of a balance challenge holding this position. And we'll take one more breath. And then inhaling, coming back to face the front. Hands frame that front foot. We'll tuck the rear toes under, finding a runner's lunge. Then big step, or as many steps as you'd like, forward fold. Inhaling to lengthen the spine, keeping our gaze down to the floor. Exhaling, melting. Inhaling, lifting up. And as we exhale, we'll sit into chair pose. So adding on, and we'll pause here for just a moment. So we're going to add on to our sun salutations. So you can either stay with options with knees on the floor, or we can move up on with knees lifted, but experimenting a little bit and seeing what feels good to you today. So there's no right or wrong, and we're just having options to choose from. So taking a breath in, using the out breath to dive forward, hinging at the hips, crown of the head down. Inhaling to lengthen the spine, flat back. Exhaling, hands come to the floor, and we'll step the right foot back this time. So again, as I just mentioned, your right knee can be on the ground, or you can keep it lifted. You can choose to bring your hands to blocks to bring the floor a little bit closer. Now, if we're on toes, we want to send some energy out that right heel. We can hug inner thighs together, so just like we did when we were on our knees, allowing that strength of the inner thighs to run in towards each other to create a little more stability. And then either walking those hands up that front leg, and remember we have options for arms. So maybe taking a little bit of a chest expansion here with hands interlaced behind the back, relaxing the throat and the jaw. And then exhaling, hands come to blocks or to the floor, and we'll step back into your choice of down dog or child's pose, adding in a vinyasa or any other movement that feels good here. So you can return to that pedaling motion with the feet, walking your dog, maybe that three-legged dog. If you're flowing, making your way back to stillness in either downward facing dog or child's pose. And then on our next in-breath, we step that right foot to the top of the mat, maybe giving it a little bit of help if it needs it. So we have option once again to lower that back knee or keep it lifted. And we might choose different options on both sides. So letting go of any need for both sides to look or be the same. Maybe raising the arms. Again, option for bringing hands to heart center. Setting our gaze. And then bringing hands to the floor. We'll step that back foot to meet the front, coming into our forward fold. Inhaling, lengthening. Exhaling, melting. Inhaling to sweep up. And then exhaling into those strong legs in chair pose. Rooting down with the feet to rise tall. And we'll do that all on the other side. So exhaling, forward fold. Inhaling, heart forward. Exhaling, melting. So this time we'll step the left foot back, coming into our lunge of choice with that back knee on the ground, maybe lifted. Inhaling, maybe raising the arms. And then we have an option for a twist on this side. So from here, we could do that twist that we did previously with hands at heart center. Or if we'd like, as we exhale, starting to bring that left hand either to our block or inside of the right foot, turning to the right. So if the left hand is grounded, pressing into that hand strongly, maybe looking up to that right arm. If that feels uncomfortable to have that top arm lifted, you could bring the hand to the lower back. Inhaling, we'll come back into our crescent lunge or low lunge. And then exhaling, stepping back. So again, your choice for movement or stillness here. Every time we have a choice, paying attention to what the body needs, and it might be a little different from time to time. So not needing to make the same decision every time. And if we're moving, coming back to stillness. On the next in-breath, we'll step that left foot to the top of the mat. Coming into any lunge that feels good on this side. Maybe walking hands up. And so since we just had option for a twist on the other side, we'll try one on this side. So again, maybe hands come to prayer, or we can take that right hand to the floor. Left hand could stay on the thigh as we twist to the left, or we might open that arm to the sky. And again, remembering, we might have a different range of motion, or maybe we're dealing with an injury on one side of the body. So honoring always what the body needs. We'll inhale, coming back to face the front, keeping hands either on blocks or on the floor, and then we'll take a big step. Right foot comes to meet the left. Staying here in forward fold as we inhale, lifting and lengthening halfway. flat back. Noticing if the shoulders are crunching up around the ears and drawing them back. Exhaling, forward fold. Inhaling as we sweep up. And then exhaling, sitting into our chair pose. Inhaling to lift up. And then exhaling, swan dive, coming into a forward fold. We'll come down into a kneeling posture. So I'm going to turn the face to you, and you might want to turn to the long edge of your mat as well. So we're going to extend the right leg out to the side. We'll put the toes on the ground. We might point the toes a little bit away from the body. And from here, we're going to inhale the left arm up and over, coming into gate pose. Inhaling and exhaling. So flowing with the breath. Exhaling back down. One more time like this. Inhaling and then exhaling. Finding that opening through the side body as we contract the opposite side. From here, we'll turn those right toes in. And if we like, you could use a block for this, or you could come down to the forearm. We're going to take a side plank. So if you have any wrist issues coming down onto the forearm, left hand can come directly underneath the shoulder. Right hand can come to the hip. So this is already a challenging pose right here. So you might choose to stay right here. Or if you'd like, taking that bottom leg and extending it. So the feet can be staggered to give us a little bit more of a base. And that right hand can stay on the hip, or we can lift that arm to the sky. Staying lifted through the side body. We'll breathe here for 1, and 2, and 3. So lowering that knee, that bottom leg was lifted. And from here, we're going to use the whole strength of that right leg, the right side body, to help us lift back up to center. So we'll release the wrists a little bit. And that might mean pointing the hand away from us, those fingertips down. We might do some circles, just shake it out. So now coming to that other side, this time taking the left leg out. I'm going to scoot over a tiny bit more. So left leg is long. Right arm is next to the body, and we'll inhale that arm up and exhale over. So feeling that little bit of a side crunch there. Inhaling and exhaling. Inhaling up and exhaling. And you might even want to place that hand there, feeling that contraction. We'll do just one more like that. And then coming into that option for a side plank, remembering if you have a wrist issue coming down onto the forearm, have the option to bring the floor closer to us with a block. And to practice safely, you want to make sure shoulder and wrist are in line with each other. So first, starting with that right knee grounded, maybe choosing to stay right here, but only if the body wants or needs to go a little bit further, then you can extend that bottom leg. But only if that's what the body needs. So if the ego is saying that's what you need, but it's not what the body needs, then lowering that knee back down. So we'll breathe here for a count of 3. So we'll count backwards this time. 3, and 2, and 1. Lowering that right knee down. And again, planting that foot, using the strength of the left side to come all the way back up. Again, some circles, maybe even some figure 8s for the wrists and the shoulders. Shaking it out. So we're going to come back into a downward facing dog, tucking the knees or tucking the toes, lifting the knees so we can lift those hips, and really finding that length for the spine, pushing into that place between the thumb and the index finger. From here, we'll walk the hands back to meet the feet, keeping knees bent, reverse swan dive, and then exhaling, hands come to heart center. So we're getting ready to do a little bit of balance for today. And remember, we always have an option of coming to a wall. So if we need a little extra support, we can place our fingertips or both hands on the wall. And we're going to explore some variations of dancer's pose today. So starting first by stepping the right foot forward. And we're creating a little bit of a kickstand with that left foot. So we're up on the toes. Hands could be at prayer, or they can be in front of the body, maybe resting on a chair or that wall. And we'll start first by just imagining that we're playing with a little bit of kickstand here. So this actually might be quite fun because we're getting some strength and we're contracting that rear glute. So you might want to stay right there. And if that's where you're happiest for today, we can stay right there with that little bit of weight, playing with that kickstand, putting the weight into that front foot. Or if you'd like, you can turn this more into a quad stretch. So reaching back, grabbing the ankle. So say you just went for a run and you want to stretch out your quads, you could do this. Or taking that hand around the ankle, so now the thumb is on the bottom of the heel. Right arm can extend forward, and then maybe hinging forward to any degree. So keeping that standing knee soft. Setting our gaze on a spot that doesn't move, so that's our drishti or our focus. And if we fall out of it, we just come back up, we pick ourselves up, and we try again, and then we'll come out of it. So maybe having some free movement here, so arms and hips can move. We could do our circles. So after holding that pose, maybe you notice you feel a little tense or tight, getting a little serious, holding our balancing poses and letting that go. And then we'll try that other side. So this time we'll step left foot forward, coming to the right toe. So hips are square to the front, facing wherever the front of our mat is or our room. Shoulders and hips are over each other. And again, we can play with that kickstand. So this can take quite a bit of balance, just lifting that rear leg. So finding that strength for the rear leg and maybe choosing to stay here. So balance is always kind of like a bus route. You can get off at whatever stop feels good to you, wherever your destination is. So the next destination you might choose would be that quad stretch, holding on to that ankle, or you can take the thumb to the bottom of the foot. And then not needing to hinge all the way forward, making sure that that standing knee has at least a little bit of a bend in it. We don't want to lock the knee out ever. Core is strong. Maybe pushing that lifted foot into the hand. And then whenever you're ready, you can lift up and out. So again, maybe we'll take a little bit of a backstroke here, or swimming movement, some back circles. Noticing what your body needs. It might be those hip circles. Maybe we'll do some knee circles, bringing the legs together, shuffling the knees in one direction and then the other. All right, so we're getting ready to come onto the mat. And again, I mentioned at the beginning that you might want to have a strap nearby, so if you do, maybe reaching for it. So we'll place those feet hip distance apart. Big inhale. We're going to take a standing twist before we go to the floor. So exhale, twisting to the left. So arms might be wide. We can look at that back hand, or we can choose to look forward. So whichever way feels better to the neck. And you might even experiment to see how those two directions might feel. We'll inhale to the front, and then exhaling, twisting to the other side. Turning your gaze in either direction. And then inhaling forward, we'll take a big swan dive. Deep bend in the knees. And now we're going to bring the knees down and make our way on to our bottoms. So having that strap or your towel nearby, we'll hold on to one leg. We're going to use that leg as a handle, giving ourselves a little bit of a hug here, hugging the knees, maybe circling the knees in one direction and then the opposite direction. And this can feel really lovely, getting a massage for the lower back from the ground. If you feel any areas that are uncomfortable or your spine doesn't like this movement, either add some extra padding or just stay still. So we're going to bring our feet down to the floor. We'll take whatever we have. And if you don't have a strap or you'd rather not use one, that's fine too. You can just hold on at the back of the leg. But if you're using the strap, placing it over the instep, and we'll hold on to the strap with both hands to start with. Now again, if you don't have a strap, just holding on either behind your thigh or reaching for the calf. So first, getting a nice stretch for the hamstring muscle. That's the back of the upper thigh. We'll let the foot be flexed so that the toes are pointing down towards the knee and the heel is lifting up towards the sky. If this is too much, you can bend the knee as much as you'd like. And just breathing. So if you find you're in a place where you're holding your breath, you've gone too far. So then just backing out a little bit, finding a place where you can let the breath flow in and flow out. We'll take a few breaths here. And if we are using a strap, we'll take both ends of the strap into the left hand. And we'll let that left leg come out to the side. We're not trying to bring the leg all the way down to the ground. So maybe just, halfway or 30 degrees over to the side. We want to make sure that both hips are still on the ground and both hip bones, both glutes are on the ground, and our hip bones, the front hip points are shining up to the ceiling yet. We're getting a stretch for the inner thigh, so nice opening there. And again, we're breathing. We're not trying to force anything. And then from here, we're going to inhale that leg back up, and we'll switch sides. So now taking the strap before using one into the right hand, and angling that big toe towards the right shoulder, we're just going to come very slightly across the body. So again, we're not turning this into a twist. We're not trying to get this foot all the way down to the ground. It's just maybe 10 or 15 degrees to the right. So you might feel this into the calf muscle or maybe into the IT band. So it might be anywhere along the leg, basically wherever you need this stretch the most. And we'll just breathe into this. Relaxing the shoulders. You might even choose to close the eyes. And take one or two more breaths right here. And very slowly coming back up to center. And then bending that knee, we'll bring the right or the left foot to the right thigh. So you can set your strap off to the side if you'd like. We're coming into figure 4 pose. So this is upside down pigeon pose. The left foot is flexed, and we're energetically putting some emphasis on pressing that left leg away from the body. So this might feel really good right here for you, and it does staying exactly where you are. Or if you'd like a little bit more, lifting that right foot away from the floor, flexing that foot as well. And either holding on behind that thigh, or you can place your arms out alongside the body. If this is too much, just taking that right foot back to the floor. And sometimes in this pose, I like to rock side to side, so you can explore that, see how that feels to the lower back. Again, not needing to do that, just having it as an option. So wherever you are, we'll take one more breath. And if we have that right leg lifted, we'll lower it to the ground. We'll slowly uncross the knees, uncross the feet, and we'll Just let the knees sway from one side to the other before we switch to that other side. We'll pause here for just a moment, maybe noticing any difference between the two legs. So you might feel a little more open, or maybe there's something else going on, and just paying attention to that. So we can reach for our towel or our strap, taking it around the instep of the right foot now, or again, choosing to hold on behind the leg if that's a better option. Keeping the knee bent. And so as we get this stretch into the hamstring, we might even be aware of it into the calf muscle as well. So if we're really tight in the calf muscle, you might be noticing that. This toes point down towards the knee, pressing that heel to the sky. Engaging the core. So we might notice if we're feeling a little sloppy in our belly, we're just letting our belly hang. So having a little bit of core control, even in a pose that's meant for our legs. So from here, both hands or both ends of the strap going to the right hand and opening out to the right side. And if you notice this left hip starting to lift, then coming up a little bit higher. Breathing into that right inner thigh. Relaxing the shoulders and the jaw. Inhale, and we'll lift that right heel back to the sky. We'll switch hands with our strap. And again, right big toe is towards the left shoulder. And we don't have to go very far in this movement to feel a stretch. And noticing how it feels on this side. It might be actually a little different than the other side. So maybe on the other side you felt it up into the thigh, maybe on this side you feel it more down into the calf, or vice versa. And then just breathing. So as we make these observations, just kind of having an observer's mind, you might say to yourself, or aha, but not attaching any stories or labels. Not judging why one thing is the way it is and something else is different. Inhaling, we'll come back up. We'll bend that knee, setting our strap to the side, coming into our figure four. So now the right foot is flexed. The left foot can stay grounded, or you can lift. Being very aware if you're creating too much tension in the shoulders by holding on to that leg. If you feel like you're crunching up or you're straining in any way, and just bringing that foot back down. Getting a nice stretch for not only that right glute, but also the lower back. This is a nice release for the low back. And then taking just a couple breaths right here. Making our way out of this pose, lowering the foot if it's lifted, uncrossing the legs, maybe letting the knees sway from side to side, and then finding any final last bit of movement that your body needs. So if that's continuing here with knees side to side, or a happy baby, maybe another twist. And then when you're ready, beginning to make your way into Shavasana, final relaxation. So maybe lying on the back with knees bent or extended into traditional Shavasana with the feet flopping out to the side, arms out with palms up. Maybe walking the shoulders underneath the body. And then closing the eyes or just letting them soften as we noticing the body starting to slow down, allowing the breath and the mind to quiet. noticing any areas that still might be a little tight or tense and sending the breath to those places. Are you ready, willing, and able? Have you cleared the path you want to travel? Are you ready, willing, and able to do whatever it takes to have what you want? Decide what you want. Be as clear as you can be. Say it, write it, share your idea with a friend. Then ask yourself if you are ready. Are you ready, willing, and able to do what it takes to have what you want? Ask yourself that question as often as you need to. Watch how you feel when you say what you want. Look for objections, blocks from within, obstacles on your path. Look closely at yourself, your fears, your angers, your resistance. Let your feelings come up, acknowledge them, then let them go. One after another, remove the blocks until the path you want to travel is clear. Remove the obstacles until you can clearly see your vision and your voice is strong and clear. I'm ready, willing, and able to have what I want, and it is in my highest good. The way to your dreams, the way to make your visions come alive, is by taking a journey inside your soul. Are you ready, willing, and able to have what you want? Do you believe it when you hear yourself say it? When you do, the road will be clear, and you'll be ready to travel the path you desire. Bringing some movement back into the body, and then gently turning to one side with knees bent. Using the hands to help lift to an easy, comfortable seat. Bringing hands together at heart center in prayer position. Bowing chin to the chest, bowing the ego to the heart. And taking a moment to honor yourself for showing up for yourself the way that you do, and for taking time for your practice today. The divine light in me honors the divine light within you. Namaste. Thank you so much for sharing your practice with me today. Namaste. Thank you, everyone.